We're going to be doing our second talk, which is Angular in 3D with Varun, and this is a project that my company Rangle.io worked on with Varun, which is a very cool 3D startup in Toronto. They spoke at jQuery TO, so if you were there you might have seen a bit of this. And what they're trying to do is take WebGL and 3D on the web and make it accessible to everyone through providing a very cool stack for developing and managing 3D models, which is really interesting for a whole class of applications, and we'll be going through one of those. So sort of starting off the talk will be Varun and Simon, and they were the two lead developers from Wrangle working on the application. And then after that, Rob from Varun will talk a little bit more about their platform and some of the cool things that are being done with it. So with that, I'll hand it off to you, Varun.
Hi, my name is Varun, and at this point I'm guessing everyone's probably heard of WebGL and seen a few demos. So I want to talk about an app we built that uses WebGL, and more importantly it uses WebGL inside Angular, and I just want to talk about how you structure your app so that you can use WebGL and the DOM at the same time. Well, the app's called Rangle.io. We built it in partnership with Varun, and we built it for Varun using their product called the Varun Studio, and Rob's going to talk about it in a bit. The goal of the app was to build a tool that lets you either explain or understand how the brain works by leveraging 3D graphics capability of modern browsers. And I have a quick video to show you guys that sort of talks about the app and gives a little bit of a demo.
Welcome to Rangle.io, a full-stack JavaScript consultancy in downtown Toronto that helps agile companies build a combined web and mobile presence from one codebase. This is where Rangle.io, a new application for neuroscience educators and students, was created. Over the last couple of months, the team at Wrangle have been working on creating BrainEd using Varun. The app enables you to explore and better understand different parts of the human brain by allowing you to highlight various parts, read up on them, move a 3D model around, and even edit the camera angle. What's unique about this app is the way that it was created using Varun.
So when Varun asked us if we were interested in doing this project, we jumped at the opportunity because so many of our clients have really interesting and challenging information presentation needs, things that you can't just do in 2D. So to be able to take 3D and use it for certain things that agencies are doing, educators, scientists, anyone who has any kind of complex informational requirements is a huge boon to be able to do that in the web.
I really liked working with Varun to build this app. The software is really straightforward and intuitive to use, and the experience was equivalent to using Unity to build desktop apps.
Wrangle brought a lot of the web components to the table, user interface, design, and web components, where Varun brought the specific 3D engine and application components. Working together, we're able to make a new kind of application that neither of us would have been able to create on our own.
So it's been a fantastic project, very exciting, and I think it's going to make 3D accessible to a much wider group of people.
The 3D on the web, I think, is one of the future technologies that's coming up that is going to change things. Oculus Rift is obviously a big indicator of a push towards 3D communication in the future. Varun is right there with them. Using WebGL, we're able to render things real-time in the browser without any kind of plugin. And we provide an editor for creators to use this technology today.
Starting today, Varun launches to the public, and they're inviting new users to build more amazing next-generation web content on their platform at Varun.com. What will you build? Let us know, and if you need a JavaScript consultant for your next project, get in contact on our website at Rangle.io, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, and Facebook too.
So for the tech stack, it was basically just Angular and Varun, and Varun kind of handles all the WebGL stuff. If you don't know how to program graphics, never worked with OpenGL, that's fine, because you can actually do that all using just a graphical interface on Varun. And it's actually a really powerful combination of WebGL and JavaScript that's kind of like Unity. If you work with Unity, it's really straightforward. You can import 3D models, set up a scene, add materials, shaders, and then export the whole package out, and then you can bring it into your web app and just plug it in. So I want to talk a little bit about the structure of the app. It was mostly a straightforward Angular CRUD app with Node on the back end. We use UI Router for nested views. If you've never heard of UI Router, it's an alternative to the Angular default built-in router, which gives you nested views. And the amazing part was that the WebGL Context was just one of those nested views. And what we ended up doing was use an AppDelegate service that sort of bound everything together and was responsible for updating both the UI that's based in the DOM and then also the WebGL Context that's running on low-level API. So the AppDelegate is kind of our app state service. A lot of people use app-level controllers. At Wrangle, we prefer to use services instead. And this is responsible for making sure that kind of like tracking what the state of the app is, load up different resources when you go to different views, make sure that they are the correct resources that you're loading up, and then finally trigger updates in the WebGL context and talk to the wrangle 3D API. So what is the WebGL context? It's basically a canvas in the browser that has a low-level 3D drawing API you can talk to. You can build shapes right from the, like starting with squares and circles and going up to 3D models. In our case, the WebGL context consisted of a 3D model of a brain. So this part was set up in Wrangle. We imported a 3D model that was just raw, added material to it, textures, shaders, set up lighting, set up the camera angles, and then imported into our app. The model was split up into 52 Brodmann areas, and these Brodmann areas kind of grouped together to form the 7 functional groups. It's kind of like memory, motor, etc. And then all of these things are controlled by the Wrangle API. So in order to control the Wrangle API, we built something called the Wrangle Remote, and this was basically AngularJS service that connects the Angular world to the WebGL context via the Wrangle API. At this point, you can access the WebGL context and highlight or unhighlight the different Brodmann areas, choose the color for them, set opacity, resize the canvas, change the camera orientation, zoom in, zoom out. So if you resize the window, you would trigger an event in the Wrangle API, in the Wrangle remote, to make sure that you resize the canvas and you update it and scale it appropriately. When we navigate between slides, we send updates to the Wrangle remote and tell it that in this slide, show Brodmann area 1 to 7, highlight them with so-and-so color, and set an opacity for it, and then transition the camera and animate the camera. And really, that's basically it. It's a really easy way to build WebGL experience. You don't need to know how to code 3D. You don't need to understand what the low-level API is, all kinds of complex math. That part's handled for you. You're just provided a bunch of JavaScript calls that you can make and trigger all kinds of stuff. So that's kind of it for the technical side of it, from how to deal with Wrangle and Angular. Simon's going to go over a quick demo of the app.
Okay, so my name is Simon. As you can see, I am currently logged in here. I have a little test presentation that will just go through a couple of things going on. So we have our model here. Give it a refresh here. So we have our model. We have our slides, and I have just a couple things. There's relatively junk text there, but it shows it off a little bit. We can see that on each slide it has a camera position that it will move to, and it has a whole bunch of areas that it wants to highlight. And as we continue to move, it will highlight and then change different areas. So we will just do a quick edit of this, add a new slide. You can select the camera position, can select a functional area, change the color of it, but if we wanted to also highlight some specific Brodmann areas, you can see that they're already highlighted because they belong to the functional area, but we can just keep adding them. And I'm not exactly 100% sure where these Brodmann areas are on the brain, but I some of them kind of slip in this crack, and it's hard for me to find. So then we have our slides here. We can add text, video, images lists. So just add a list of text, or we can save it, exit, go back, go to my presentation. We now have 4 slides. It will move it to the 4th slide again, and this brain is movable if you so desire to continue to move it within a slide, but if we go back and forth, it will reset it to its original set position. And as we can see, here's the 4th and final slide.
This app has a couple of things to be added to it in the next sort of week, and then we're going to be releasing it as an open source app with Varrold, so that if anyone wants to look at the Angular code and look at how it's interacting with Varrold's 3D engine, it will be available as a public sort of open source repository. So we'll send an email around to the group when that's released, so anyone who wants to dig into it can go and look at the application. And one of the features will be transparency on one side of the brain, so that when you want to see through to the functional areas, they won't be masked by one of the hemispheres. So being able to turn off half the brain is one of the last features that we need to add to the app. And then it'll be available for anyone who wants to see how they might build an Angular app that would use 3D content that we could build up in the Varrold engine. And with that, we'll hand it off to Rob, and Rob's going to take us through some of the Varrold technology. So that'll sort of complete the picture of building a 3D app with Angular.
Yeah, I mean, what we're trying to do in Varrold is just trying to make like tools and a community really for people who want to create 3D experiences on the web. The great thing about it is it doesn't require a plugin or anything like, well, I guess Unity is coming out with a WebGL version, but before that there didn't exist anything. But our tools allow anybody to create full apps, games, model viewers, web app components, and more, all using WebGL, 3JS, and JavaScript, which you know, a lot of people already know. I'll try to hook this up so I can show you what our thing looks like. So this is just our homepage here, but even on our homepage, just show an example of like how we integrated 3D with the web, like HTML markup, so that like these buttons are kind of underneath the stack of the 3D, and they're kind of, you know, interacting with each other. So you can do interesting things like that. I'll show you. This is an old version of the brain, but it shows kind of like what the editor looks like. So you can get like a scene editor here where you can, you know, interact with your 3D model, and there's like an inspector to you know, edit all the millions of properties 3D things have, and then we have like an asset browser for managing all of the different like materials and textures and sounds or anything else that you've got going on, and we offer all the, you know, kind of standard controls you'd expect from kind of 3D editor, so you can like move stuff around and whatever. But it also comes with like a code side to it too. So what we did for Wrangle for the Brain Ed app was we'd set up the brain model in our studio and 3D, and then we can provide a bunch of sort of, not low level, I guess kind of like mid-level API that calls Varrold functions, but then provided to Wrangle some specific functions for that app. So some of those were just like, we made like a highlight function and a rotate function and move to a camera position function, and all that was handled on the Varrold side. So the interface designer didn't have to worry about how that worked in the 3D world. They just had to call those functions, which made it, I assume, very easy. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're going for. A lot of this is built around the community idea, so that you can work in real time with other collaborators in remote locations and talk to them within the scene. And yeah, it's just about sharing all your 3D stuff on the web.
So do you self-host this, or does you go to studio.varrold if you were going to edit your model?
Yeah, you would go to studio.varrold. So this is all like an interface in your browser.
Yeah. So you guys update the whole app, so I'm not worried about keeping my thing.
Exactly. So yeah, we're providing the platform that in the engine that runs it all, so you don't have to like worry about how that is going to work, or if there's a browser update that needs a fix, like we'll fix that, and your stuff will just keep working. But we do have export capability too, so you could like package everything up and download it and do what you want with it offline, host it yourself on your own website too, so you're not tied to us if that's not what you want.
So is there camera control stuff too? Like, can you draw a little like?
Yeah. I'm not the 3D expert.
You're
I'm
the
more
fly-through guy.
Yeah. I'm making the interface of this, but yeah, you can add cameras, multiple cameras, lighting, everything, set them up and position them, and then you can like what we did for Wrangle. There's like multiple different camera locations that were called, and then it just kind of moved and tweened between the two.
How big is your brain? Not your brain, that brain. Like in terms of like, the size of the file.
The size of the
delivering
file.
that content over the web, right?
Yeah. Part of what we're doing is when you import import one of your 3D models into our engine, we're doing a lot of optimizations to minimize the file size. I don't know the exact specific size. I'm just looking here. It looks like maybe like 10 megs of stuff, including all the textures and everything. But yeah, like if you have a really like huge poly count 3D model and you import it, like we're gonna do our best to like make that work in the most optimal way, but still retain all the fidelity of your model.
In the recap video that you put at the front, I thought I saw a mouse over the model that was highlighting regions. Maybe that was just the slides rotating through. This is something that I've had, I wouldn't say a problem with, but when I want to create a 3D object, I want to have regions, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass to like have to actually fire a vector and then see what I hit. So does Varun provide something like that, where like if I'm interacting, can I just like mouse over a region of the brain and it knows what I'm on if I predefine that?
Yeah, like see here, there's two different regions. So like I can, well, this is an old version. It's not, I can show you another example here. Maybe that would be better. This is another game that we made just for fun at the studio. It's called the Floppy Dragon, like Flappy Bird. So we had a dragon model, so that's what it turned into. And let's see if this works. So I forget how to play. Oh, you click. Yeah. So it's all 3D, but I mean we made it look 2D. So I mean you can do different things with it. So that's that. But you can see this is like the part in the studio, and yeah, you can like click on the different parts without them. Yeah, like it'll know which one you're clicking on. Yeah.
Any thoughts on supporting any 3D printing?
Printing? Yeah, we are actually working with some 3D printing companies. I don't know if we're going to handle the printing ourselves, but it's definitely one useful feature of this. A lot of companies that are obviously doing businesses with 3D printing, like they could host a website, show in 3D on their website using our technology what it is that you're going to print before you print. And they would handle, I guess, how that works. Anything else? At the back.
Is your tool for creating 3D assets, or is it you're importing and then you can engage with them, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can create primitives and things in here, but it'd be more, I guess, sort of like a composer. It'd be like Unity, basically, in your browser. So, like, you'd use some other kind of 3D editing tool, like Maya or 3D Max or something, to actually like build a model. This is more about putting it all together and adding interactivity and that sort of stuff to it, and making the final project.
So I know nothing about Unity and 3D. So what formats do you support?
Any 3D format, we convert it all into a common format in our engine that runs in the browser.
So if people want to work with Varun, what's the process for going to the website, and what do they have to do?
Yeah, you can go to Varun.com. You can make a user account for free. We have a free account right now. It allows you to do basically anything in our editor right now. We're still working on the upgraded paid solutions. Those new features will be coming out soon. But yeah, I think the only difference between a paid and a free account at the moment is privacy. So if you're okay with your stuff just kind of being out in the public in our public listing, go nuts. If you care about like keeping things private and not showing anybody, then there's a paid solution for that.
So with that, we'll sort of wrap up the meetup. There's still some steam whistle, and I think maybe 1 or 2 slices of cheese pizza left. So feel free to have another steam whistle and sort of chat a bit. And thank you for coming. So, all right, let's have a
Now it's my turn.